The next thing we're going to do is we're going to animate text with animation pretext. So the first thing we're going to do is select the title here layer in the timeline panel, right? So here, we've done that. So selected that. And then at the first frame of the animation, and we're going to make sure we're at the first frame of the animation. All right, after we make sure that we're on the first frame, and what that is I can go all the way, I can make sure to drag this all the way to the left, right? So here's my slider, I move it all the way to the left, right? Or my scrubber. I can also do the home key, right? So I'm going to click my home key, and that should take me all the way to the left. Then with the title here selected, so I'm making sure my title here is selected, under the effects and presets again, I choose fade up words, right? Fade. So in my search, I type fade up words, and I want to take the fade up words and I'm going to drop it on the move. So I'm going to grab this effect and I'm going to drop it on the move so it selects it, okay? And there we go. Now I've selected the on the move thing, and then what should happen is, right, there's my it's going to fade up those words. I've given it that effect and I've added to it automatically. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm drug all the way to the left. Once again, I'm all the way to the left where this is 0, 0, right here. And I'm making sure my title here is chosen. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to type the word channel because I'm looking for the effect called channel blur. Once I have channel blur in a search box in the effects and presets, there's my channel blur right there. I want to drag the channel blur effect onto the title here layer in the timeline panel. So I'll grab channel blur, I'll bring it down here, and I want to put it on the title here. So now I've added this blur to it as well. After I've added a channel blur to the title here section, what that does is that blurs the red, blue, and green to add an effect to what's been added. So what I want to do is I want to change the red blurriness, green blurriness, and blue blurriness, and alpha blurriness to 50, which is all these three settings right here. So I just go in, I can type in 50, I can use a slider if I want to. I'm just going to use 50 in each one of these. There you go. So now that I've changed all those from 50. Okay, once I've changed the red, the green, the blue, and the alpha, all to 50, I want to make sure to click on these stopwatch items because what that does is that sets those to be effective at the point in time where I begin. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag my slider. I'm going to move it all the way to the end. In my case is 30 seconds. Yours might be a minute. It doesn't matter. At that point in time, you want to put zeros in this, right? All the zeros. And what that does is it transfers or makes it go from blurred out to blurred in as we go through the different parts of the screen. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change the opacity or the way to see through the background. So in the timeline panel, I selected the ellipse 1 layer. So that's the ellipse 1 right here. Then I want to choose T to reveal the opacity's property. So I could have just did the down drop arrow and chose this, but I chose opacity. So I choose T, right? T hides it, T shows it, there's my opacity. And then I want to change the value to 20%. And you'll notice the modification up here as this occurs. So you've got a 20% value, right? So there you go. You get an idea more of what your title is going to be doing. Okay, so what I did was I made some modifications and I made this thing work. And in the long run, this is kind of what you're supposed to end up with. So you have it where he gets the ball, someone has done this, and you'll notice this kind of fades in as we go through. And I've already previewed that. Now the way I previewed that is I went up to here. I'm going to stop that. And I went up to here and I pushed play and or stop. Now, originally when I had inserted it, something was a little off with my size of my title and my information and things along those lines. So what I had to do, since my title, it would stay blurred almost the entire time. This was all sitting right at about 6 or 7 seconds, which is perfectly fine. I then came back in and I modified the size. I took all my sliders and I moved them down here. Okay, that would be the first thing. Okay, so to continue with what was going on, I had made too much. So if you wanted to modify it to make it smaller, that's perfectly fine. I went up to my title, because remember we did our fade out with the title, okay? And I double clicked on the title. That actually took me here. Then what I did is with the blurriness, because remember we started the alpha blurriness at 50, and then I put it all the way over here, and then I changed it to the zeros or whatever. Well, I'm actually going to delete these out right now. So now what happens is, here is my 50, and here is when it all comes into play, right? So here's those items. And I just moved it from, I could have moved it from here to here, but I just changed it. So now my title zooms in the 6 seconds. So when I first did it, it stayed blurred. So I modified it where that wouldn't happen. And then I could just preview it. Oh, I gotta set it back here to the movement here. There we go. And there's my composition, there's my footage, and here's my individual project. We'll go ahead and test it. So that's the part that I'm actually seeing, right? And I can actually see the modifications and the roll from there. So that gives you a pretty good idea of what we're kind of working with. That gives you a pretty good idea of how to actually run it. And if you had any particular questions, as long as you get close to what's going on here, because in my particular option, it didn't get to everywhere where it needed to go. Okay. So if you get close enough, I will still count it. And this gives you an idea of what the exported movie is supposed to look like. And I'm perfectly fine. You can get close. Perfectly fine. All right, well, that concludes part 2. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good day, and good luck.